Hello and welcome back to our tutorial here. So we have the last video tutorial we had, we left off with this here, which is my basic sort of animatic, and in this tutorial here we're going to build on this. So first thing I want to do is I want to create some titles, and I'm going to add in some titles here to top and tail the film, or the animatic film. Now, what we have here is we've got an effects library and a media pool, so I can turn on and off my media pool, and I can turn on and off my effects library. And you can see here I've got different folders. So one is called titles, and then I've got a series of titles here. So I can add in basic text, a lower third, which would be, if you were captioning somebody, giving their name, a scrolling title if we wanted to have animated titles at the end. But I'm just going to put in a solid or a single title here. So I've just dragged and dropped it over here, and I've placed it on top of my selection here, my timeline. So I'm going to draw a box. I'm just holding down the left mouse button, and I'm going to pick these up with the left mouse button and move them back to about there. And I'm going to take this title and move it along, and we can see its duration, so it's about 6 seconds to there, and it's called title. So we're going to select it, and then up here in our inspector window we can see our title, or its properties. So I'm going to select it here. Now this film is called V2, and I can set the size of my text, and I can do all sorts of other things there, stuff that you'd find in a normal word processor. So I can change my font. So I'm going to use, let's see, what's a good font? Well, Courier New is what's used in most scripts, so I'm going to use that there. So V2, I could probably do something better, something more kind of sci-fi, because it's about a robot, but I'll leave it at that for now. And we can change all sorts of characteristics here. I can change the color, the space between the letters, the space between lines, etc. Its alignment. And then down here, this is interesting, we can change its zoom and its position, as we did before with these. So let's do that. Let's keyframe both the position and the zoom at the start of the clip, then move to the end, and then let's zoom in a little bit, but also let's move it down to there. And now let's see what we've got. So when we press play, okay, so not terribly beautiful, but it will do. So that's my opening title. Now again, I'm going to take this, and I'm going to I was going to duplicate it. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I was going to drag in a new title. So I'm going to go back here to text, bring it over here, take it, and we'll drag it along. Again, it's about we want it to be about 5, maybe 6 seconds long. That's 7. That's fine for now. Oops. So again, select it all and just move everything down. And this title here is going to be, it's going to say BIFE, and then we'll go underneath and then presents. Now let's take these and we'll change them to our same font. I would suggest that you don't use multiple fonts in a single project. So we can have multiple sizes. So I can type in here, say 250. You can see that the presents is not changing size, so we'll make this about 280, and then we'll select presents and we'll make that maybe 100. And now maybe this should go in first. Maybe this should be the first title. So I'm just going to move this around. So it's going to say Biffy Presents V2. And then lastly, what I'm going to do is going to zoom out a little bit here on my timeline. I'm going to move all this down out of the way. I'm going to put in one more, so I'm going to move this. And I'm going to add in a title here. So I'm going to drag and drop that in there. And let's zoom in here. We'll make it a wee bit longer. Oops. And this is going to say okay, so that's me. And we'll go back up and again try and be consistent, and I'll make this 100. So it's the same size as presents. So Biffy Presents, Noel McKay Film, and oops, put that there, V2. So just a couple little things here. There's I can link things, but I can also snap. So I can turn snapping on and off. So now I can, it'll leave a huge gap here. We don't want, that's called a flash frame. We don't want flash frame. So make sure that's turned on. That's snapping. So it will jump and click into the previous clip, or the clip closest to it, and then I can bring these to here, and then I'm going to want a title at the end. Now I haven't got all the information I need for my title at the end, so I'm just going to put in basically a holding title. So I'm going to put this in here. Now this title here, we're going to make it a little bit longer. Let's zoom in on it, and at the most, so around 20 seconds. Now this may be replaced with a scrolling title in the finished film, but for now we're just going to put in here, we're going to say written, and where's my ampersand? There it is. Written and directed by, and then Noel McKay. Now I'm going to take that and again change my font, Courier New, and then change my size of all of it down to 100, and then we'll make it all centered. Perfect. And we'll just leave that for the full duration there. Now we will put in additional information like who is the music by, and any other information that we need to put in about copyright or thanks, or if somebody else did some editing, or someone else did color correction, or somebody else did the camera work, or etc, etc. So it would be highly unusual that you would have one person who would do all of the animation, all of the compositing. Now that's not to say for your film you'll be doing all of it, but that's well, you won't be doing all of it. You're using your classmates to help you, but you'll be doing most of it. So but your credit list could be considerable. Could be, if it's a minute long film, it could be almost as long as the film itself. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my media tab here, and I'm going to go and import a little bit more information, or a little bit more data. So I'm going to go user, Noel, and I'm going to go to my desktop, and then my folder here. So these are all the images we brought in, but I have 3 additional files here to bring in. So again, I'm going to select the 3 of them, and then just drag and drop them into my media pool, and then I can go back to editing, and I can go in here and I can use these. So these are slightly different formats, so I'm just going to very quickly tab out to here. So these have been downloaded off the internet, and they are MP3 files. And this was recorded on my phone. This is my voiceover, and it's an M4A file. Now you may need to convert some of these if you download an audio format that isn't supported by DaVinci Resolve, but you can talk to Grant about that and he'll show you how to convert all your different audio files in your audio class. So for now, here I am, and I've got we'll start with my voiceover. So I can just double click in here and I can press play. So I have written a voiceover and I have recorded it onto my phone, and I think I have the pace of it about right, so I'm going to drag and drop that and put it onto the timeline. So here is our voiceover. Now, so we'll have a quick look at audio here. So first of all, how this window is set up here. The audio is very large. Is if we click on this, we can set the height of the audio track, also the height of the video track. We can change the format. So depending on how much material you had on the timeline, you might want to change these accordingly. So I don't need, that's a fine height there, and we will open this up a little bit so we can see the waveform. And then the next thing is, so we've looked at this tab here where we import our material, and we have done a good bit of work here. We will eventually look at this tab here, which is color correction. No, not today. That's for a future tutorial. But this is what we're interested in today. This is Fairlight. So we're going to look at what we've got here. So what we can see is we've got two separate kind of recordings here, so that you can see this is vo.l and vo.or. So this is my right ear and my left ear, or my right channel and my left channel. And when I recorded this on my phone, it used both microphones that are on the phone, and one is obviously considerably more sensitive and considerably better than the other. So what we need to do is we need to take this and we're going to look at the clip attributes, and in the clip attributes here it says format stereo, and then it says the left is embedded channel 1 and the right is embedded channel 2. So if we change that to this and hit OK, you can see I've duplicated both channels that I didn't want. So I'm going to go Control Z, and let's do that again. So clip attributes, and then we're going to change this to embedded channel 2. So now both of these, the left and right of stereo, will both be this one here. Now, so that's our starting point. Now the volume is represented by this white line. Now I can increase and decrease the volume, and once I reach the top, once it's flat lines, I'm going to distort. It's going to be too loud. I also over here have my audio meters, so I can check out how high and low the volume is. And then, so we'll just we'll go back to our edit now that we've duplicated the audio. We will start here and press play. Now we can see that the level is far too high. We're flying up into the red. So we go back to Farlight here, and we're going to bring our level back down. And you can see the level I'm doing on one side is duplicated on the other. These two white handles or to fade in, which is going to be useful because there's a little click at the start, and to fade out at the end so that we don't get any abrupt start or end to the piece. So let's play that and see what it sounds like. And so what we can see here is we've got a huge differential between the audio at the beginning and in the second half, and then the volume of this middle piece is quite low, and that's because I turned the phone around when I was recording it, so that we would get a differential in audio level. So how do we fix that? Well, let's zoom in a little bit and let's press play again. Now, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add in a keyframe or a handle, an audio handle. And how do I do that? Well, I hold down the Alt key on the keyboard and then I left click. Now I've added in 2. I'm going to zoom back out, and then down here I'm going to add in 1 and then another, and I'm going to grab this white line and I'm going to lift this up till it's, you know, approximately the same height of a waveform as the rest of it. Now you can see this middle piece here is too loud, so again I'm going to add a handle either side. I'm holding down the Alt key and I'm going to reduce the audio in here, or the volume. So let's see what that sounds like now. So I don't know if you can hear that as I play through it. I think I may have system audio turned off on this recording, but the quality of the audio is quite poor, and that's because I've recorded it on a phone and not on a proper audio recorder like a H4n that you guys have available to you. But for now, in terms of the just showing you how to manipulate the audio, that's enough. So as I said, you hold down the Alt key and then left click, and you can add in a handle. And if you don't like a handle that you've added in, you can just click on it and then press the delete key on your keyboard and it'll disappear. Now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to our edit tab and we're going to add in some music. And so I have 2 tracks here, and this is the one I'm going to use. Again, I'm just going to drag and drop this onto the timeline, and I've created a new audio timeline, or new audio track, audio 2. So if I go back to Fairlight plugin and we make these a little less, or zoom in on the timeline, you can see that this audio clip is much longer than the edit. So it's going to start underneath the titles, but it's not kind of starting fast enough, so I'm going to bring it back here, very quickly fade in, and then move this back to the beginning so that the audio starts more directly or more immediately with the titles. I'm going to go back to my edit, and I can edit audio the same way I edit video. I can drag the end of this clip and I can bring it up here, so that it snaps to the end of the video. Go back to Fairlight, and then I can just fade that out. Now again, this won't be a perfect fade, but we'll have a quick play of that. Whoops, into the edit tab, and we'll press play. Okay, so this is all as it should be, and then you can see that the audio changes here just as the film starts, or as the visuals start. Now the last thing we're going to do is, this is all excellent up to about here, but I need to hold down my Alt key, add in a handle, and oops, not that one, this one, reduce the audio so that there's still audio playing like a soundtrack on my film, but that it's very low, comparable to the voiceover, otherwise I won't be able to hear the voiceover. And we'll bring that up, and now we'll go back and have a quick listen. I won't listen to all the titles, I'll start there. Okay, so that works quite well, and we have to fix, we'll have to re-record our voiceover, but for the purposes of demonstration here, that works quite well. So in our next tutorial, what we'll do is we'll come back and have a look at pacing and edit, so trying to create cuts in the right places so that the picture corresponds to the voiceover and also corresponds to the soundtrack underneath. So if we need to trim these back or trim them forward a little bit, so that everything kind of syncs together nicely, or conversely editing the length of the audio clips to match the visuals. So when we in the next tutorial, that's what we'll explore. Okay, that's enough for now.